Nobody knew who he really was. He came in with a mop and a bucket, pushing the cleaning cart like someone who had no story, just sweat and a faded uniform. The office staff barely noticed him. Some said, "Cleaner, shift na." Others dumped coffee-stained cups on his trolley like he didn't have blood in his body. But every day, he was watching. Not from pride, but from something deeper, curiosity. He wanted to know what they said when they thought no one important was listening. Who gossiped? Who slacked off? Who smiled in front and scattered things behind? The company was big, but not too big for one man to lose control. He built it, from scratch, from one tiny corner of a cage to a full office with glass doors and staff that dressed to kill. But he stopped wearing suits. He stopped riding the black Prado. Now, he wore cheap sandals, loose trousers, and a t-shirt that had seen better days. His beard was rough. No perfume, no gold chain, no power in his walk. Just a cleaner with tired eyes. And it worked. That morning, the HR girl walked past him, chewing gum like she owned the place. She was always late, but her makeup was fresh like rain. Then came the loud boys in shirts with folded sleeves and big grammar that meant nothing. They cracked jokes about the owner being a muumuu, not knowing the same muumuu was wiping their spilled coke from the tiled floor. Nobody looked twice at him. Except one girl. She didn't talk much. Wore flat shoes. Always greeted him gently like he mattered. She even helped him pick up a folder once when it fell from his cart. She smiled, not with pity, but with something soft and kind. He noticed her. And he made a quiet note in his heart. Something about her would matter later. The office was all shine and noise. Keyboards clacking, heels clicking, perfume mixing with tension in the air. But beneath the glitter, something dark was crawling, competition without conscience. He moved from room to room, mop in hand, and saw everything. The manager, sleek and smooth-talking, was always too busy to greet the cleaner. But he had time for whispers in corners, handshakes that ended in sealed envelopes, and contracts that somehow disappeared after being signed. The receptionist smiled with all her teeth, but only when the cameras were on. Behind the desk, she rolled her eyes and mocked callers, even deleting CVs when the names didn't sound posh enough. He didn't say anything. He just cleaned. He emptied dustbins full of secrets. Swept under chairs where broken truths gathered. Listened to meetings through walls not thick enough to block greed. In the lunchroom, one staff told another, "I heard the owner is abroad enjoying life while we slave here like fools." The other replied, "If I was him, I wouldn't come back. Lagos people will drain you." They both laughed. He smiled to himself. Then, something odd happened. One of the junior staff, a tiny boy with energy like fire, brought out a brown envelope from his drawer when he thought nobody was watching. He tucked it behind the fridge. Looked around. Wiped sweat. Walked away fast. The cleaner followed, slowly. Took the envelope. Opened it. Inside, receipts, stamped forms, and copies of company funds marked approved by the manager himself. He folded it back. Placed it exactly where he found it. He wasn't ready to move yet. That girl with the gentle eyes walked past again. Her eyes caught his. She paused. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, like she meant it. He nodded, mumbled thanks, and watched her disappear into the HR office. Something about her was still pulling him. Not just her voice. Not her face. Something else. She didn't belong among these snakes. And that was why she might be the one to change everything. He watched the girl more carefully now, not like a man chasing love, but like someone searching for a reason to trust. In a place where loyalty was traded for lunch, her small kindness felt loud. Her name was Tonia. She didn't join office gossip. She ate her food quietly, not from restaurants, but from a small cooler bag, rice, stew, sometimes moi wrapped in nylon. She always washed her spoon after eating, even cleaned her corner when no one asked. One day, she walked past him in the hallway. Then stopped. "You look tired," she said, her voice low. "Hope they treat you well here." He smiled. "They try," he replied. She nodded, adjusted her bag, and walked on. That short moment stayed with him. Upstairs, the noise was rising. A new file had gone missing. Finance was breathing down HR's neck. People started whispering names, tossing blame like dice. The manager shouted at a junior staff in front of everyone. His voice thundered, but the cleaner knew it was fear, not power, behind it. Later, he saw the manager in the corner, breathing hard, phone to his ear. "I told you to handle it," the man hissed. "If the audit goes deep, we're finished. Burn that file if you have to." He kept mopping. That night, he returned in the dark, long after everyone had gone. He had keys to everywhere. Of course he did. He owned the locks. In the finance room, he opened a drawer. Took out a folder marked confidential. Checked the signatures. There it was, Tonia's name. Signed on a transaction that had never reached her desk. They were setting her up. He closed the drawer quietly. Outside, the wind was blowing strong. But inside him, something stronger had started moving. He wasn't ready to reveal himself. Not yet. But if they touched that girl, he would burn the place from the roots. The next morning came with thunder in people's voices. One look at the office, and you'd think it was war. Everyone was moving fast, pretending to be busy, pretending to be innocent. Someone from the audit firm had arrived early. Black suit, stiff face, eyes like razor. Tonia sat alone, her lips pressed, hands shaking slightly. Nobody spoke to her. HR was already acting strange, whispers, fake sympathy, side glances. The cleaner walked past slowly. She didn't see him. But he saw her. She had changed that morning. Her blouse was ironed, but her face looked tired, as if she didn't sleep. Maybe she didn't. Downstairs, the manager was pacing like a man who'd lost control of his feet. He kept calling someone, shouting short sentences. "The file is gone." "What do you mean it wasn't destroyed?" "Don't call me again." The cleaner smiled, just a little. The file wasn't gone. He had made copies. 4, to be exact. One was already with someone who owed him a favor. He continued mopping the hallway, but this time, the staff were quieter around him. Something about his silence had started to smell like danger. In the boardroom, the audit officer was calling names. One by one, they entered, sat, answered, left. Some came out with trembling hands. Others faked confidence. When they called Tonia, her steps were steady but her shoulders tight. He stood close to the door, pretending to clean the glass. Inside, he heard her voice. "I didn't authorize that payment. That's not my signature." "You're saying this was forged?" the auditor asked. "I'm saying someone wants me out of this company." The room went quiet. The cleaner placed his mop down. Slowly. A line had been crossed. If they didn't believe her, fine. But he would make them remember this day. And they wouldn't forget the men they used to call cleaner. By lunchtime, the air in the office had changed. People started greeting the cleaner with small smiles, like he had suddenly grown a new shape. Someone even asked him, "Olga, you day all right?" But he didn't answer. He just nodded, like always. Tonia sat at her desk, eyes on her screen but not really working. Nobody wanted to sit near her now. Her name had entered the blacklist, even though her hands were clean. The manager walked around like a rooster, louder than usual. He barked at IT, insulted admin, and pretended not to see Tonia. But the cleaner was watching. Later that afternoon, he went into the basement store where old files slept under dust. He didn't come for dust. He came for the camera. Only 2 people knew it was there, him and the guy who installed it years ago when someone once stole company chairs and claimed it was rats. He scrolled through the footage. Date. Time. Scene. There it was. The manager. Late at night. Entering finance. Opening drawers. Taking out folders. Stamping pages. Then, he paused. The man lifted a signature stamp, Tonia's name. Stamped it. Smiled. Closed the file. Left. He downloaded the clip. Sent it to one email. Then deleted the trace. He came back upstairs. The office was humming again. Phones ringing. Laughter forced. But Tonia was packing her bag. She had tears in her eyes. They told her to go home pending final review. No one stopped her. Except the cleaner. She was almost at the door when he spoke. You didn't do it. She turned slowly. Sorry. He looked at her for the first time with eyes that weren't just watching, but knowing. Don't cry. Come tomorrow. Everything will change. She stared at him, confused. But he had already picked up his mop and walked away. Her tears paused. Somehow, those words sat in her chest like a quiet drum. The next morning arrived like a hammer. Everyone thought Tonia wouldn't show up. But there she was, walking in with her bag clutched tight and her face set like someone who had nothing left to lose. The receptionist blinked fast when she saw her. HR whispered, "She get mine, Shaw." Even the cleaner, who was polishing the reception glass, got one long glance. But she didn't look away. He smiled slightly. She sat at her desk, and this time, no one spoke to her. Not insult. Not greeting. They were all waiting, for what, they didn't know. But something was coming. By 10 a.m., a black Jeep parked outside. The man who stepped out wasn't smiling. Dark suit. Clean head. Leather folder in hand. He walked past the cleaner without a glance and straight into the boardroom. 5 minutes later, the manager was called in. Then HR. Then Tonia. Everyone pretended not to watch. The cleaner moved close to the boardroom door again. Mop in one hand, calm in the other. Inside, the lawyer from head office flipped open a file. This is CCTV footage from 3 nights ago, he said. The manager's eyes widened. We also received an anonymous video clip showing you using Miss Tonia's signature without her knowledge. The manager laughed, weakly. I can explain. We also found emails, the lawyer interrupted. And the original folder was sent to us from a private email account. The trail is clean. The evidence is full. The room went silent. Tonia blinked slowly, not fully understanding. We'll be pressing charges, the lawyer said flatly. And Miss Tonia, we owe you an apology. You're not only cleared, you're being considered for team lead in your unit. Outside the glass, the cleaner moved back to his cart, picked a cloth, and wiped the table gently. Tonia came out minutes later. Their eyes met. This time, she didn't just smile. She walked to him, stopped, and whispered, "Was it you?" He looked at her. "I'm just the cleaner," he said, and walked off before she could ask again. But her heart had already answered. The news spread faster than harmattan dust. By noon, the manager was escorted out. No shouting. No final speech. Just him, carrying a brown envelope and shame wrapped around his shoulders. Some clapped silently in their hearts. Others stood by the window, pretending to look at the road, but really watching disgrace drive away. Tonia was back at her desk, but now everyone wanted to greet her. HR brought her coffee. The receptionist called her Madam. The same people that gave her side-eye yesterday now offered fake smiles like free samples. She didn't answer much. Her mind was somewhere else. The cleaner was nowhere to be seen. No mop. No bucket. No familiar footsteps in the hallway. At 3 p.m., an email dropped. Staff meeting, all units, 3:30 p.m. boardroom. Everyone rushed in. Tonia sat at the back. The air was thick with gossip, guesses, and hungry curiosity. Then the door opened. He walked in. Not with his mop, not in slippers. Suit. Tailored. Clean shave. Calm face. No smile. Phones dropped. Mouths froze. He walked to the front and stood beside the head office lawyer. The receptionist whispered, "Is that not?" Tonia's eyes widened. She wasn't breathing. He looked at them, not with anger, but with the silence of a man who had been watching too long. "I'm the founder of this company," he said, voice smooth. "And for the past 3 months, I've been working here as the cleaner." No noise. No cough. Nothing. "I've seen enough to know who works and who pretends. Who respects people and who only fears power." Some staff looked at their shoes. He scanned the room slowly. His eyes stopped at Tonia, just for a second. "Some of you may not be returning tomorrow." Then he walked out, leaving the room hanging in silence. And behind all the tension, one person was smiling, not because she was safe, but because she finally understood who he really was. The next day came with quiet tension. Half the staff didn't show up. Those who came arrived early, sat up straight, greeted security, and even offered the janitor cold drinks. The wind of fear was sweeping through the office, strong and unforgiving. Tonia entered and found her desk moved, closer to the glass corner where team lead sat. Her name was now on the internal portal with a new title, Project Lead, Strategy Unit. She blinked, sat gently, and breathed slowly. Everything felt unreal. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her thoughts were elsewhere. He hadn't spoken to her since the meeting. The man who watched in silence. The one who saw everything while pretending to be nothing. At noon, a mail came from his office. "Tonia, kindly step into the founder's office." She stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked down the hallway. Her steps were soft, but her chest was dancing. She knocked. "Come in." He was by the window, looking at the city. This time, no mop, no bucket, just quiet power and soft perfume. He turned, his eyes still calm. "Sit." She did. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, her voice gentle. He nodded. "You earned it. I only removed the dirt so the light could show." She smiled. "So, that means you watched all of us?" "I watched how people treated someone they thought didn't matter," he replied. She looked down, shy. "And me." He smiled. "You were kind when you didn't have to be. That's all I needed to see." They sat in silence for a beat. No tension, just something warm hanging in the air. "I'm building a new team," he said, standing up. "People who lead with heart, not noise. You're already on it." Tonia nodded slowly. As she stood to leave, he said, "Next week, I'll be gone again. This time, not as a cleaner, but as a shadow." She turned at the door, smiling. "Wherever you hide, you'll still be seen." He chuckled. "Not by many. But maybe by one." A week passed, and he was gone again. No announcement, no send-off. One morning he was there, the next, his office light stayed off. His name on the staff list remained, but no one could reach him. Only Tonia knew it wasn't by accident. She had stepped into her new role with quiet fire. Meetings ran smoother. Deadlines breathed again. Even the staff began adjusting, less noise, less pride. Something had shifted in the air, like a house that had been cleaned from its soul. But whispers remained. Where is the Oga now? Will he come back again as security? Abi he donde testa still? Tonia smiled when she heard these things. She knew better. One afternoon, she received a brown envelope on her desk. No name, no stamp. Inside it was a note. Still watching. Still learning. Stay honest. The cleaner. She held it to her chest for a moment. Later that week, during a staff briefing, the head office sent a new update. Annual promotions will be based on staff conduct, not just performance. People started straightening their backs again. Suddenly, respect became a new language. The office felt less like a battleground and more like a team. But Tonia missed his silence. Missed the way he walked slowly, like time obeyed him. Missed how he looked at people, not with judgment, but with deep understanding. He had shown her that greatness didn't always come loud. Sometimes, it wore slippers and carried a mop. On Friday evening, as she stepped out of the office, she saw someone across the street. Same posture. Same walk. But this time in a hoodie, cap low, hands in his pocket. He didn't come closer. He just nodded once, then disappeared into the crowd. Tonia stood there smiling, wind in her hair, heart full. Some people look for crowns. But some become kings by sweeping the floor first. It rained the next Monday morning. Not the wild, angry kind, but soft, steady drops that tapped on windows and slowed traffic. Inside the office, the week began with umbrellas leaning on walls, wet shoes on tiles, and coffee warming cold fingers. But the story of the cleaner still lingered. A small photo had appeared on the staff notice board, him, in suit and glasses, shaking hands with a government official. Caption: Founder. Observer. Leader. Nobody touched it, but everybody stared at it at least once. Tonia stood by the window in the new strategy room. The city was breathing below her, and she was now part of something bigger than just tasks and targets. She remembered everything: how he walked past judgment, how he chose silence over spotlight, how he gave her hope just by seeing her. She still had the note. Still opened it sometimes, just to remind herself who she wanted to be. And then the invitation came. A letter from the board: join the mentorship retreat. Direct entry into the founder's core team. She read it twice. He had made space for her, not just in the company, but in the kind of future built on honesty, not hype. When she walked into the training hall 2 weeks later, she wasn't alone. 10 others had been chosen: cleaners, drivers, interns, people who had been invisible too long. They were now being trained not just to work, but to lead. And at the front of the room, he stood again. Same calm eyes. Same quiet strength. No titles. No noise. He greeted them all like equals. This company isn't built by the people at the top, he said. It's built by those who never stop trying, even when no one's clapping. He looked at Tonia. She smiled. He didn't smile back. He just nodded. And in that one silent nod, he gave her the whole world.